Oi, pessoal. Bom dia, boa tarde para todo mundo que está aí aqui falando com a gente, tá? Muito, muito obrigada pela presença. Eu realmente espero que vocês tenham uma tarde ótima, com um monte de aprendizado legal, e que vocês realmente
Ela tá
aproveitem
transmitindo, tô ouvindo.
muito, muito mesmo, tá?
Sua configuração de áudio aí.
Robson, alguma coisa, Robson?
Não, desculpa, vou botar em mute.
Bom, nós temos hoje um convidado maravilhoso, que vocês vão conhecer daqui a pouco, mas antes disso eu tenho alguns recados para vocês, né? Até para esperar um pouquinho, enquanto a gente conversa um pouquinho antes. Primeiro, novamente, muito bem-vindo nesse seminário, nesse webinar, na verdade, que a gente está falando, né, agora. Ele faz parte da série de eventos ED2020, são os eventos digitais 2020, que eu e o Robson criamos, e que esse é um dos que a gente tem muito prazer de apresentar. Para quem não me conhece, eu sou a Vanessa Martin, e os que já me conhecem sabem que eu tenho enorme paixão pelos eventos e pela tecnologia aplicada dessa área. Isso está explícito nos meus livros, nos meus artigos, e-books e cursos. Mas em cada um deles, eu procuro colocar a minha experiência de inúmeros anos como profissional, consultora e professora para conteúdo que seja diferenciado e relevante. O Robson, que está comigo nesse projeto, é também um cara apaixonado por tecnologia, por eventos e também por educação. Ele tem mais de 27 anos nessa estrada. E como vocês vão ver daqui a pouquinho, ele está compartilhando um pouco desse processo todo de aprendizado e de paixão aqui também nesse evento. Esse evento faz parte desse projeto de eventos híbridos e virtuais, ou os eventos digitais, e o Robson é meu parceiro em todos eles, tá? Então, uma salva de palmas para o Robson, sem ele a gente não poderia estar aqui compartilhando tanta tecnologia também. Mas vamos lá. A primeira coisa que a gente fez nesse projeto foi um e-book chamado Eventos Digitais, Híbridos e Virtuais, e ele já teve milhares de downloads. E a gente continua a receber comentários de agradecimento sobre a qualidade do conteúdo. E por isso, nosso muito, muito, muito obrigada mesmo. Foi a nossa primeira contribuição para ajudar na capacitação do mercado brasileiro, nesse tema que agora é imprescindível para o nosso dia a dia profissional e também pessoal. Esse webinar que nós estamos iniciando agora, com o genial Will Curran, faz parte do projeto para atender também aqueles que pedem e precisam de mais conhecimento, de mais conteúdo e de muita qualidade na entrega. Afinal, se a gente parar para perceber e atentar, esse também é um dos fatores que diferencia os eventos presenciais de excelência, mas no digital, conteúdo é realmente absurdamente essencial. Mas esse webinar também, ele só foi possível pela generosidade do Will, que cedeu esses momentos conosco. Mas também porque a gente encontrou o profissionalismo e a parceria da Coletivo Tradutores, intérpretes, né? Que também acreditou na relevância desse conteúdo que a gente vai entregar hoje. A Daniele Fonseca e a Patrícia Coppola são as vozes que vocês escutarão quando da tradução hoje, tá? E essa empresa é um intérprete que tem intérpretes de mais de 20 anos de experiência e tem como foco principal servir de um canal de relacionamento entre pessoas e clientes, né, de dois lados do mesmo canal, para que a comunicação seja fluida e plena entre todos eles. Mas mais do que tudo, precisa de ter eventos como o nosso, né, que tem participantes internacionais, precisa de ter essa qualidade maravilhosa desses tradutores e Daniela e Patrícia, nosso muito, muito, muito obrigado. Vocês são parceiros que qualquer profissional de eventos precisa e deve ter. Bom, mas aqui nós estamos aqui mais perto de vocês com esse projeto, porque ele é realmente muito especial. É um complemento de tudo isso que a gente está apresentando para vocês, tá? E a gente queria pedir uma gentileza. Nós já estamos com quase 200 participantes agora, e eu queria que vocês, depois que terminasse o Will, fiquem um pouquinho mais, porque nós temos também algumas outras novidades e umas dicas para vocês que a gente gostaria muito de passar. Então, permanece um pouquinho mais com a gente, tá? Bom, mas vamos lá. de volta para a programação desse webinar, que a gente espera que vocês gostem muito e que consigam aprender um pouco mais sobre esse universo dos eventos digitais que entraram na nossa vida e vão ficar. A estrela do dia de hoje é o meu querido Will Curran, é um convidado para lá de especial. O Will, ele é fundador da Endless Events e foi nomeada uma das pessoas mais influentes do setor de reuniões e eventos. É um dos top 40 líderes da indústria de eventos norte-americana com menos de 40 anos. Tá? Então, ele realmente é uma sumidade. Ele produz eventos presenciais e virtuais há muito tempo, desde o colegial dele, quando iniciou a sua primeira empresa. E hoje ele trabalha na produção de grandes nomes dos eventos nos Estados Unidos. A missão dele na equipe é simplificar o processo de planejamento de eventos, criando a equação para uma solução perfeita do evento. Ou seja, nós profissionais sabemos a diferença entre fornecedores e parceiros. É o caso do Will. Esse fornecedor ou esse parceiro tem que saber muito bem do que ele está fazendo. E vocês vão ver que o Will entende do recado. Então, ele faz da logística do evento ao desenvolvimento de negócios e a produção técnica. E a experiência do Will é enorme e vocês vão ver agora. Como uma pessoa incrível que esse cara é, ele aceitou o nosso convite para estar hoje com vocês e compartilhar esse conhecimento que a gente colocou dentro de uma programação bem simples. Nós estamos fazendo essa primeira introdução e logo em seguida o Will vai fazer um primeiro bloco no qual ele vai falar de como converter os eventos presenciais nos virtuais. A gente vai ter espaço para perguntas, então vão anotando e vão colocando no chat as dúvidas e perguntas que vocês tiverem. Eu vou fazer essa moderação, eu e o Robson, e depois ele volta para mais um bloco de 20 minutos, no qual ele vai dar todo o expertise dele sobre como escolher as melhores plataformas. E isso é uma pergunta que todo mundo faz para mim, e a gente tem agora o especialista para responder isso para vocês.
To answer this question.
Ok? Bom.
Hey everyone. So yeah, when it comes to producing virtual events, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So I encourage you to use the Q&A section throughout the entire presentation, not just when we say, hey, do you have questions? So feel free to utilize the Q&A during the entire time. I'm going to try to keep my talking brief so I can answer your questions. Before we get started, though, I'd love to get everyone energized and excited to be here, and also to show a little bit about what audience engagement is when it comes to virtual events. So what you're going to see is in the Zoom webinar, there is a hand raise function. If you click on the participants view, then you'll see a button that says raise hands. Hover over that. Don't click it quite yet. Well, some people are getting excited. Don't click it quite yet. On 3, I'm going to tell everyone to click that raise hand button. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to create basically a virtual wave as if it's a football match right now. We're going to bring that right here into this webinar. So grab your raise hand button, hover over it, and on 3, everyone click the raise hand button. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, raise those hands. Everybody raise your hands. And all right, now everyone lower your hands. All right, now everyone raise your hands. All right, now everyone lower your hands. All right, awesome. Man, we got to give a shout out. Let's, if everyone wants to make some noise for our interpreters in the chat, make some energetic noise and post your favorite emojis, all those things like that. They're doing a phenomenal job interpreting so quickly. So thank you so much to our interpreters. So yeah, before we jump in as well, I also want to engage you guys in the chat as well. So I'm going to pose a question for you guys to start talking about. Let's start the discussion. So my question to you in the chat, and I want you to post your answer, not just yes or no, but like a whole reason why. Do you think that the future of events is going to be 100% virtual? Or do you feel like, virtual is going to die after all this happens? Post in the chat what you think. Do you think that events are going to be completely virtual, or will they be not completely virtual? And I'm sure we have a bunch of polls in here as well. Let's dive right on into the content. I think if you guys are all ready as well. So when it comes to talking about virtual events, it's important to not just ask a question. I mean, like Vanessa said, the #1 question that I get asked on a daily basis is, what is the best platform? And what I encourage you to do is not to say, hey, here's the best platform and, here you go. Instead, you needed to take about 5 steps back. Sometimes I wish I had a wireless microphone. Take 5 steps back, and everyone needs to start thinking about that this opportunity as event professionals, that for the first time ever, everyone in the world is looking to the event professionals to tell them what to do. So it is your chance to get beyond just talking about execution and design of events, which we're so used to. For example, supplying chairs or supplying the linens or supplying, the audio visual. But instead, we need to start thinking strategically. There's a great talk by Simon Sinek that basically it's called Starts with Why. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube very, very easily. Just Google search the talk Start with Why by Simon Sinek, and I'll post a link to it in the chat as well for everyone, just so that way you guys have a bookmark into it. And I'll be utilizing the chat during the entire presentation as well, so feel free to look there for any links. Also as well, while I'm thinking about it before I jump into Starts with Why, I also created a Google Doc for everyone as well. So if you look in the chat, I posted a link to the Google Doc. Go ahead and copy that link and join that Google Doc, and that's your collaborative notepad right now. So as as a group, feel free to take notes in there, throw your ideas in there, take screenshots, do whatever you want inside of there. That's basically your guys' domain, and what you can do whatever you want with it. I see all the clicking and moving around already. So go check out that Google Doc and feel free to take notes there. I'm gonna leave that open forever. So that's for you guys as a kind of a gift to work on. So starting with why, Simon Sinek says, instead, far too often we like to talk about what we do. For example, the event, it's a conference, right? And sometimes we like to talk about the how we do it. It's a really engaging conference, right? But no one really loves to talk about the why. And I think that now at this point, as Simon urges us, is that we need to be thinking about the why and the strategy behind everything being done. So at this point, when it comes to playing your virtual event, I get it. Most of us have no idea what we're doing, right? This wide interweb is a huge unknown domain for so many of us. So the thing to do, though, instead of trying to focus on what is and the platforms and everything like that, instead focus on the strategy. Think about your attendees. And that's the first step I always recommend when starting to work on your strategy, is thinking about your attendees. And what you need to build out is what's called an attendee persona. And I apologize for a lot of my links that I'm going to share on our site. A lot of them are in English. But if you ever want to translate them into Portuguese, let me know. I would be happy to have you. But start with your attendee personas. A persona is basically a fictional representation of an actual attendee, right? You actually give them a name, you have a picture of them, all these things like that, but they're not an actual real person. Again, fictional person. And what you want to do is you want to categorize your attendees into different buckets. And what you want to do is you want to focus on their motivations, their demographics, their psychographics, all that sort of stuff. For example, far too often that we always forget that, we think that all attendees are alike. Oh yeah, the attendees of my event, they all want X. They all want this. They all want that. Sometimes, that is just not okay to bucket your attendees into one gigantic bucket. But instead, what you want to do is break them into little buckets along the entire way. For example, you might have Stan, and I'll use Stanley as a persona name. I just picked the most random name I could think of. Stanley, let's say, he's 50 years old. The only computer he owns is an iPad. He really loves going to the conference because he loves getting all the education and finding out what all the new technologies and things like that are, right? You might have a completely different attendee who's like Emily, for example. And Emily is 20 years old. She grew up on the internet. She has her laptop on her cell phone. She's been using TikTok since day one. She's super duper tech savvy. Those two attendees could exist within your entire attendee base as your personas. And you could be targeting them and trying to deliver content and an experience. And if you give them the exact same thing and you assume that everybody's an Emily, or you assume everybody's a Stan, well then, for example, when you're thinking about designing your event and what platforms you want and everything like that as well, you're going to get stuck and you're going to be unsuccessful when doing it. Also, the thing to think about as well is that right now, the companies of the world, the corporations of the world, they're looking to you for the answers. And far too often, we've been trying to get onto the strategic level where, you know, we want to be with the CEOs and the chief marketing officers of the world. Well, now's your chance to act like a CEO, a chief event officer, and to start thinking strategically about the business goals that you're trying to accomplish. As you start to do that and you start with that why and you design your event around your personas, you will then start to make the how and the design a lot easier. And kind of the way that I break down events is that you first start with the strategy and the why, then you go into the how, which is like the design, and then you go into the what, which is the execution. And when we get into the platform conversation a little bit later, we will definitely talk a lot about the what. So let's give you guys a couple other kind of things when it comes to design in the hows. You guys are awesome, by the way, utilizing that chat to talk to each other. Thank you so much. I want to give some shout outs to Camilla, Andrea, Patricia, Adriana, Liana. You guys are awesome. Natalia, thank you guys so much for utilizing the chat and talking to each other. Also, big shout outs to the Google Docs group crew who is putting all the links and chats and everything like that into the Google Doc. All right, so let's go into design and a little bit of the how portion, right? And start to peel back this layer. So this is the area that I think the strategy portion, there's so much information about business strategy. You can go into that all day, but the how. So when it comes to virtual events specifically, you need to think about your how in a couple different ways. First, think about your content. And that's the area I say to start with the most. Once you understand your audience and your strategy of what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do what you're trying to do and the motivations behind your attendees and what they're looking to get out of it, you can then think about the content. Quick tips for you. First of all, less is more. I love this webinar because I'm only speaking for 20 minutes and then we're going straight into Q&A. I actually want to speak a little bit less, so I tend to talk too much, so I probably utilize all 20 minutes. But definitely have less content. Before, we used to talk about conferences being 8 hours long in a day. That's not okay anymore. Imagine someone sitting in front of their computer for 8 hours. I don't think anyone would do it. If you think you can sit in front of your computer for 8 straight hours without a break, please utilize the chat. I want to give you a superhero cape. Next thing you want to think about when it comes to your content is think about your audio quality. Audio quality needs to come first, followed by video quality. Far too often do we focus too much on, hey, we need to make sure the video content's great. But here's the thing, if it sucks to listen to and it's not enjoyable to listen to on headphones, people are going to tune out a little bit faster as well. So make sure that you focus on audio quality. Next thing that you want to think about as well is that you're remote presenters. And when it comes to your content, right now, we all have to be at home. So we all have to present from our offices, right? You get to see what my office looks like and everything like that as well. Think about the fact that you're going to have remote presenters. And I think that's going to be a huge trend moving forward, even beyond the fact that eventually when we start to be able to come together in groups, you're going to still have presenters who are going to say, hey, can we do this 100% remotely? So one thing you want to think about is how can you get them the right equipment and make sure that they sound good? You know, you want to have a podcasting microphone. You want to have a web camera for them. You want to make sure they have good lighting, all that sort of stuff as well. So make sure that you have all that thought about before you do all your designing of content. One idea too, when it comes to your content, a quick pro idea and tip is that consider instead of doing an 8-hour day, or like, let's say, for example, let's make this easy. Instead of doing 3 days of 10 hours of content each, what if instead you're doing, 10 straight hours, you have times 3, but for a total of 30 hours, instead you did an hour of content every day for 30 days. Then that way your attendees get a little bite-sized chunk along the way, and they can just learn a little bit every day. This is found to be way more effective also for education as well. So whenever you talk to someone in the education space, they will always say that slow drip learning is the best way to get it absorbed. Just imagine the last time you took a test and you tried to cram it all in your brain and do like a 3 months worth of learning in one single day. You took the test, you got through it, you passed, but then it all left your brain, right? So instead, think about slow drip learning. And we're going to talk a little bit about some strategy elements a little bit later on monetization. So we're going to talk a lot about platforms and technology. So I'm going to save that section, but we definitely want to think a lot about that in the design of everything. One thing to think about when designing your event as well is asynchronous versus synchronous. So meaning basically the things happening sometimes on the set, not happening at the same time, and sometimes happening at the same time. So when it comes to asynchronous content and the idea of things not necessarily happening, we're used to events where you attend for 3 days and it only happens in that one moment, right? And then 3 days, 3 days are over, it's all gone and never happens again. But instead, maybe think about how you can turn your event into an asynchronous event. For example, right now, this is a synchronous event, meaning that if you want this content, you have to be in this moment. If you want to be in the Google Doc talking to each other, you want to be in the chat, you got to be in there. However, we turn it a little bit into asynchronous because what we're going to be doing, and shout outs to everyone who's watching the recording of this, is we're going to be recording this and posting it on YouTube and allowing people to watch it in their own time. Think about how you can weave those two together so you have some live elements. But for those people who want to binge watch 8 hours of content like on Netflix, they can do that and set up a video library for people to watch their content. One thing to think about as well is how you can potentially pre-record the sessions, but then still have a live chat when people watch it and have the presenter come back and engage in the chat afterwards as well. Comment on things, that sort of thing as well. One thing to keep in mind as well when it comes to recording your content, always repurpose it. Turn this like hour-long talk I'm gonna do, turn it into little 60-second social clips and use it for your social media. Imagine you had your entire social media calendar filled up with video content for the rest of the year. Your conference is going to allow you to do that. And then the last thing when it comes to the design of the event, think about the literal design of the virtual event. Web design matters. I know that we want to think that we can utilize these 1990s level like platforms. I'm not going to say which ones exist and which ones are out there, but you've been on them probably in the last couple of weeks. If the experience is not enjoyable for you to utilize, it's not going to be enjoyable for your audience. And don't sacrifice design and design experience for the fact that, oh, this might be the only option that I have as well. Things to think about as well. People are on multiple devices. I'm curious to know as well, maybe in the chat, what device are you watching this on right now? Are you watching this on your laptop, your desktop computer, your iPad, your phone? Oh, we're getting a lot of laptops. I might actually fail this experiment. There we go. We got one cell phone. Awesome. Okay, laptop. Oh, on TV, iPad, desktop, cell phone. Awesome. So you can see though, like majority of people are on their laptops. However, a lot of people are also on their phones and on their iPads. One person's watching on their TV. Shout out to you. We're on the big screen right now. So when it comes to doing your event, think about potentially how you're going to make it responsive. So then that way people can enjoy it on the device that they want to use it on. It's always frustrating for me whenever I'm watching like an hour-long talk or a class that I can't put it on the TV and then take notes on my laptop separately. I have to, plug my laptop into the TV or something like that. Maybe figure out a way to, have that cast button so you can cast it onto the screen. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? All right, that's a couple of quick fire tips, but I want to kind of open it up maybe for Q&A if we're open to it. If you guys are cool with it.
First of all, we are going to make a poll.
Awesome.
Give me just 1 second. We're going to make the poll, okay?
Yeah, no worries.
So
cool.
Go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're gonna get that poll started up, so I want to see everybody engaging on that poll. Wait, real quick, I think everyone's got to get warmed up. I just got done talking for 20 minutes. Can we do the wave? We're gonna do the wave again. So everyone hover over the raise hand button. Don't click it quite yet. Everyone get the raise hand button ready. All right, everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands. Oh, come on, everybody, get your hands up. There you go. Yeah. Raise those hands up. There you go. Oh,
Jesus,
all right.
Almost everybody.
Now everybody, put your hands down. All right. Now, everybody put your hands up. And everybody put your hands down. All right. We're just checking to make sure everybody's awake. All right. You want to jump into the poll?
So we're with the poll already. Are you seeing the poll, everybody? I believe so. You can answer in the chat. So people are answering already. Come on, everybody voting.
All right. So, yeah. Everyone utilize that poll. Go ahead and submit your answers in there. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to randomly vote.
I'm going to show the results when we reach 50% of people answering. So we're almost there.
All right, guys, you got to get your votes in right now. Let me see that engagement. Get energized.
Yeah.
Everybody get those poll votes in.
60% right now. So here's the results. So the questions you made, just to let you know, Will, are if you did realize any digital event, and 90% of people answer yes, I did already. And second question was, among those events you created in digital or you participate, what was the number of participants? 44%, 100, 100 to 320%. It goes down when the number grows. As the number grows, so less people participate. And the last one is who you are. If you are a customer of events, if you're an organizer or a promoter, if you are a company that offer events, or you offer a event corporate manager or coordinator. So we have 53% are customers of events, 53%, most of them are organizers, and 28% are managers, corporate event managers. Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So I had to translate to you. Sorry, Will.
No, it's okay. No, that's awesome.
So
no,
it's yours.
It's great. What's interesting about, I think, the results is that majority of you who have been planning the events are doing it in a small way, right? You know, it's, whoop, should I switch back over to off, I'm guessing? So yeah, so the interesting thing I think about this is that a majority of the events being planned so far are small scale. And I think that virtual events have created this really awesome, you know, chance for us to create a really small, intimate, engaging experience. And I also want to praise everyone for going out there and already planning some virtual events as well, because this is the time to experiment. This is the time to make mistakes and for us to try some different things as well. So don't hesitate to go out and experiment and try something new. And I think it's great to do that in a small scale too, right? Like also the brave ones out there who are planning events with 1,000 people or more, and fantastic, like awesome. I think that right now virtual gives us also the chance for us to break barriers and do travel. Like for this event to happen, for this panel and this conversation to happen, I would have had to come all the way down to Sao Paulo, right? We'd all had to come into the room and be together, right? But because of this, like I'm doing this from my house in Phoenix, Arizona, which is pretty exciting as well. So great stuff as well. Awesome. Vanessa, should we dive into some Q&A?
Yes, Robson, can you put something else for us to discuss?
So I'm going to make a second poll, second group of polls, because you are a little bit late on putting the polls, and I have the questions here. So everybody, please goes to the questions and answers, and you put your question there, and we are going to start after the poll. We are going to start with Q&A just after this second block of poll. Okay, so I launched it, and the first question, just to let you know, Will, is if you think digital event is more complex than presential ones. And digital events we call the hybrid, and virtual events, the online events. Awesome. Second question is, what is the most difficult in operation when operating a virtual or digital event? So what is difficult? What in the opinion of people is difficult? And put many options there. I'm going to answer the answers in a few minutes.
Awesome.
43% of people voted already, so we need more. We need 60% or 70. I want 70. Come on. Vote. Let's vote.
Let's get 100%. 100%, everyone.
Come on. I want to hear from you. We want you to participate, and let's understand what's your impression about that. It's not changing that much the results anymore. Here are the results. So
close.
For the first question, so it's more complex to have digital events than presential ones? It's half. 40% yes, 41% yes, 43% no, and 16% I don't know. I was supposed
At least they're honest. At least they're honest.
Yeah. I was supposed to put here, I don't have a clue.
Honestly, that's totally okay. I think that we need to admit when we don't know what we're doing too. Like, you know, like it's not be ashamed to not know exactly what you're doing. This is a new world for us all.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is the time to fail. So this time people are more okay if you fail, right? But people need to get more professional and more. In a few months, failure are not going to be accepted anymore. So the second question was, what is most difficult to you to operate the digital event? So to engage participants is the winner. Most of them, no, the winner is all the answers together. So to engage participants, to choose the companies, to source companies, to define new ways of incoming money, of making money. And the last one is to integrate the presential event with the digital one, if it's a hybrid event. So, but the winner is all the answer together.
Everyone's just like, hands up, I give up. Everything's difficult. That's very interesting.
Then you can understand why we invite you to talk to Brazil, because the need of answers, all kind of answers, how to choose the suppliers, how to engage, what's the second most wanted answer. That's the things that they really need to know. I mean, it's a new world for most of the people, and they need to do right. That's the worst. I mean, you don't know what to do, you know how to do, but you had to deliver a very high quality. So, what do you suggest? I mean, what can you say to those people?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'll definitely reiterate what I said about, and especially what Rob said, that if right now is the time to experiment and to try things, because 6 months from now, everyone will have already been doing things and they've already had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, who knows how many events under their belts. So the standard level is going to go so much higher, right? Also, like I think this is somehow going as a viral tweet across the internet. My prediction is that by June 2020, so aka in 1 month, that everyone's going to hit maximum webinar fatigue. And so I think because of that, you know, right now it's acceptable to have someone throw on a PowerPoint and talk over it and not see their video, not engage with the audience. And people are like, you know, there was some good information. It was okay. Yeah. But, you know, in a month from now, that's not going to be okay. And so what I think is that when you have this high amount of pressure, is that find ways to do small tests and small experiments rather than to try to say, let me do my entire conference right now. So for example, if your conference was supposed to be in, let's say the next 3 months, maybe figure out a way to do it virtual, but push it out 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months out. And instead, in the next 3 months, do a series of small webinars, little small virtual events with a couple of speakers. And so that way you can get a chance to do a little small experiment here and there. And that's coming from the guy who literally gets paid to produce virtual events. And the bigger it is, usually the more money I make, right? So I'm telling you to start small because it allows you to see as well. Like, we're going to recommend the best platforms and the best tools. But honestly, we sometimes also just don't know until you put people in front of it and you give them a chance to utilize it as well. You know, I think that's a big chance for everyone and a big opportunity as well.
Yeah, I got some questions here in the Q&A session.
Yeah, let's jump in.
So the first one is, I need to prepare a sales convention with lots of content. How can I do that without getting boring or to get the people tired of so much content?
Yeah, great question. So first thing I think is to jump back into that design phase about the content design. Look at all of your content. You probably already have all the sessions listed out and know the speakers, right? If you don't, that's great. That allows you to start from scratch, which is probably even better. But if you already have all of the content laid out and the speakers already designed, you probably know which ones are the best. And let's be honest, it's going to be like maybe 10%, right? There's probably only 10% of sessions and talks that are really like just, oh my gosh, amazing, right? So I think that you have the opportunity to say, let's choose the best 10%. I think it's called the Pareto's principle, but it's the idea of the 80-20 rule, right? That
Mhm.
80% of your results come from 20% of your work, right? So we've also heard this as in like 90-10, all these things like that. The same principle applies to everything in the world, I think. It's funny.
For sure.
So for sure, content, you probably have 10% of your content's actually really good and engaging, has great speakers, people would love to see live. That other 90%, it doesn't mean it's bad content. I definitely don't want to say that, because let's be honest. Let's say, for example, you have the accountant and the finance guy come in, he's talking numbers and, you know, all these things like that. And usually people's eyes glaze over, but it's good content, but he's just not engaging. Well, what you might want to do instead is say, hey, I'd love for you to pre-record that talk. And let's pre-record it, and then let's throw it in a video library, and let's give access to attendees to this video library maybe a month in advance of having their event. So what that's cool about is that it allows people to skip over the content that they think is boring, but also as well, it allows people to watch it faster too. So that's my favorite thing. I'm curious to know in the chat, how many of you listen to podcasts? Maybe put your favorite onomatopoeia. Is it a okay translatable word? So like, if you listen to podcasts, like make it like a pow, wow, kazam sound in the chat. So like an onomatopoeia. I don't know if that translates exactly. But yeah, so like, look at all the people who listen to podcasts. Why do we love podcasts? Because we can listen to them on our time. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, while they answer that, there is a question, a nice one, regarding networking. I mean, how you can stimulate a network on virtual events. Can you answer that, please?
Yeah, so networking is obviously difficult. We're used to networking in a sense where we put people in a room, we give them alcohol and food, and they just talk to each other. And that's networking, right? That doesn't work obviously on virtual events. Like you can't just like ship everyone a bunch of wine and beer and then put everyone in a Zoom room and hope they somehow create connections, right? That doesn't work in the virtual sense. However, the next level of networking, and this was existing in in-person events, and now it's going to exist in the virtual sense, because all they had to do is just rebrand it as virtual. But the idea behind one-on-one networking is the idea that you need to create some sort of system, and we'll talk about platforms, system that allows people to match with each other, to find commonalities, to find each other. So I'll give an example of this, since I won't tease them too much for the platform stuff. Vanessa and I actually got a chance to meet on what's a platform called Brain Dates. Brain Dates has existed for years. It's one of my favorites. It actually existed for in-person events. And the idea behind it is they set up topics, and then people decide to meet based on those topics. So for example, our talk was how to convert your in-person events to virtual. And Vanessa showed up, and we got a chance to talk, and we got to network. And then look, I'm here now because of it.
Yes.
And that was because there was a mechanism, a system, which allowed us to pair and match with each other. And then all it took was a one-on-one video call, essentially. Ours was a little bit bigger. We had 4 people in our group, but it was still the same concept. The idea is build a system that pairs people. And your system could be you manually picking people and saying, you need a match. It could be, for example, there's a tool called Donut, which is created for Slack. It automatically picks people in the Slack group and pairs them together every week to meet each other. There's a lot of different options out there, but find some sort of system that automatically connects people, whether they thought they would want to meet or not, and then allow them to do it. The next level up of that is allow them to integrate their schedules, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Great. Robson, any other questions?
Yes, I have another question. So how can I do the emotional moment like in a presential event? Now I want to see your answer.
Yeah, oh my gosh. There's a lot of different emotional moments, but I think that to think about this, for a lot of times when we're thinking about virtual events, we get stuck thinking, how can I take this in-person element, turn it virtual, right? But the truth is, it was like, maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago, no one thought they had attended a virtual event. I did a poll like the week 1 of the whole entire like outbreak happening. I said, how many of you have been to a virtual event? And it was like 95% said never been to one. And I said, okay, so when was the last time you watched the Super Bowl? Right? Or you watched, the Grammys, or I don't know. You guys can probably name some famous television event that has happened that's live, right? And it has an in-person element, and then
the Oscar is a good one.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So, there you go. Or more recently, the World Cup, right? So I think that far too often we think about things so strictly and limited in our brains, but we don't realize that television events are basically virtual events. We watch online and we do that. think about this as well. Think about like an asynchronous piece of content that you watched that got you emotional. Think about the last movie you watched on Netflix that made you cry, or that made you laugh, or that like blew your mind, right? Like the last time you watched Inception, for example, right? And it just completely blew your mind. All those things were possible, and there was no physical interaction happening. So you can do that exact same thing. So think about, like, for example, the last time you went to a conference and, you know, a speaker got up there and told a really emotional story about a cause or something like that that changed their lives. And, you know, maybe they, you know, there was some life-changing moment they had, and it made you cry, or it made you go, wow, I never thought of that. That same thing can happen virtually as well. My hope is that it's happening right now with virtual events, but I think that's me thinking too highly of myself. But I think that you have to go back to and figure out what is the emotional moment you're trying to create, and then have a brainstorming session. When's the last time, you know, if you're trying to create shock, when's the last time you were shocked? If you're trying to create sadness, when's the last time that you were sad, right? And think about the things that caused you to have those emotions. And then you probably will realize that some of them happen virtually already, right? So yeah, just a little brainstorming exercise for everybody in the morning or afternoon, I should say.
There's a cat over there.
What?
There's a cat over there.
Yeah. Where's Wally? Somewhere over here. Yeah, he walks in and out. I have 3 cats, so they just walk in and out. And this one's a little noisy.
Yeah. So, he's gone.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to remark on Jose, just because I'm trying to follow the Portuguese. I know Spanish decently well, so I can follow along with a little bit of Portuguese. But I want to give a shout to Jose, who said that a good example was when we had this hackathon that we did for this group called Event Hack through Socio, which is like an virtual event platform. And when I did my talk, I played music as we introduced our team. Like, we only had like 10 minutes to present, but the idea was that like everybody else was up there and was like, so this is our event, this is what we're doing, here we go. Well, what I did is I like played this like hip hop track in the background, and like it just fit the theme of our presentation really well. And like I was like, all right, and welcome to the team, I want you guys to make some noise, you know, for Vanessa, and make some noise for Rob. And what was crazy is people went nuts in the chat. And so what it did is it created the emotion I was trying to create was excitement. That I want people to be excited for our presentation because there was a crowd vote. So I want them to vote for us. So I just did things like to get them really excited, right? And I think that was the thing. And then what was great about it too is like our whole presentation was just all about hype and excitement, that people were like, oh, you know what'd be great? You guys should have swag. And I was like, oh, in the chat, I go, just you wait. So I created anticipation. And then the next slide was us talking about how we were going to do swag. And I know, so I think that, you know, that was just a simple presentation, but it took me as a presenter to be engaging and do things a little bit differently to get people excited as well. So
yeah.
Will, there's a great answer.
Thank you.
Do you think that the media organizers will have to transform themselves in YouTubers?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that a good audience to watch if you want to learn about virtual events is look at YouTubers and streamers specifically. So like your video game, e-gaming, live streamers that are, you know, playing video games and literally talking over their headsets. Those people draw audiences of like 5,000 people to watch them play a video game and listen to the person talk. So next time you're trying to understand like how to create an engaging live stream or something like that, log on Twitch, which is just twitch.tv, and just look at what the most popular things are that everybody's watching and what's in common with them. Study them and figure it out. And chances are they're playing music, they're engaging with their audience and calling them out by name, right? There's something always happening on screen. So it's not, you know, things are constantly changing. You know, great examples of how to do it. And I think that YouTubers are already 6 steps ahead of most of us because they understand the equipment, the editing, the storytelling, everything like that as well. And if you see like online, a lot of YouTubers who are traditionally doing recorded content are going live as well. And I think it's because they have everything that they need. They just need to work on how to engage the audience live. And I think they're going to transform, but I think they're already a couple steps ahead of us.
Great.
Do you think that the event organizers are going to learn much more the tech aspects of a digital event, right? So they're going to need to get some degrees on this step towards the YouTubers, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that the people, to be frank, the people who are succeeding right now and are getting the notoriety and getting the business are the people who this isn't a challenge to them technologically, right? I call them digital natives, like people who like they grew up with a phone in their hand. They understand they've gone live on Facebook on their phone before. So what I think is important, and I know that's bad news for some of the audience, right? Some audience is like, well, I'm not that person. Like I had trouble getting on the webinar today or whatever it may be, right? That's okay. But what you need to do is just like you were an event team, you had someone who's really good at catering. Like I never cooked all the meals at my events. So I hired a caterer. If you didn't understand AV at your events, you hired an AV guy. You need to hire those people who understand the things that you need. And that's how we're going to keep jobs going in the events industry as well, is tapping into the people who know what they're doing as well, rather than just us trying to learn everything as well. It's important to learn. I think it's important for everyone to learn, but don't hesitate to also build your team and build people around you who do know what they're doing. And everyone's here to help.
Next question is for you. Sorry, Vanessa, go ahead.
There's more than one question regarding the presenter and also the moderator, asking how they have to act in a virtual event. You had told a little bit about the presenter, but I think it's good to wrap because there's a lot of people asking for those questions.
Yeah. So we're still working at Endless on a speaker checklist and some like presenter guidelines. We have it internally made for the virtual events we're producing, but we're working on turning it external as well. It has a lot of like jargon and technical language in it. So bear with us. But if you subscribe to the blog, I posted it in the Google Doc, and I'll link to the Google Doc again in case anyone missed it. But in the Google Doc, I have a link to the weekly sound check, which is our newsletter. Feel free to subscribe to that, and we'll let you guys know when it's live. But when it comes to your presenters and your MCs, first thing is you have to make sure they're high energy, right? Like there's a reason why I think that and this might be me speaking a little bit with an ego, so I apologize. But like, I think one reason why I'm getting asked to do so many webinars and talk so much is that I'm really high energy. I like wave my hands all over the place. I like to play music. I talk really fast, which I'm trying to talk way slower. Rob's like, slow down, slow down. So I appreciate you so much, Rob. And so I think that the reason why that people like me as a presenter is that I'm high energy. That's the first thing. Second thing I think that people like about me is that I understand the technology and the platforms that I'm using, and I use every feature I can, right? So when I see the polling, I want to remark on all the comments coming in. I want to give shout outs to Pedro and Carlo and Eduardo and Claudia for joining us today. Like, I'm going to give shouts to everybody in chat. I'm going to use that raise hand functionality. I'm going to engage and create a conversation in the chat. I'm going to use every little feature I can. I'm going to understand my webcam and how my hands interacting with it, right? Like, I know how to make sure myself sounds really good. And I think that allows me to be a step above. So you meet like high energy plus understanding the technology, you're golden. Because before, presenters really relied on the planner to have their stuff together, to make sure they had the right AV, to make sure they had the right projectors, that they looked good on stage. They might have asked for stuff, right? I want a headset, microphone, things like that. However, I think that now the responsibility is shifting closer to the presenter's responsibility to make sure they have the right audio, to make sure they are engaging, that they use the platforms, everything like that as well. So feel free to post it in there as well. This is awesome. You guys are blowing up the chat. Whoa, it's going crazy.
No, because somebody made a question, who are in the Portuguese channel? So they're like, me.
oh my gosh. It's like a hand raise emoji. That's incredible. I'm going to steal that for sure. You guys are awesome.
That's great. Another question, another really nice question. So, do you think that Zoom is the best platform?
That's a good one.
Well, okay. Sometimes, right? So I love Zoom for all of my client meetings, right? My like, hey, I'm doing a sales pitch or we have to show a demo presentation. I love Zoom. It's super easy to use. It just works every time, you know, it's just rock solid. And I think before all this happened, Zoom was already one of the best platforms, but then when it blew up, it was like very obvious they were like one of the leading platforms, right?
Yeah.
However, I think it's good also for webinars in some cases, right? Like for a long time, Endless used Zoom webinars for stuff. I love it because The Q&A functionality has the upvoting and downvoting functionality, which is similar to Slido, which I really like. So for example, luckily we're not getting too many questions in, but when I do webinars with like 1,000 people, I'll get like 300 questions in. So I want to make it so people can upvote it and downvote the questions. So the best stuff goes to the top and I answer those first because it's what everyone wants, right? Like a little bit of crowdsourcing. I also really love the raise hand functionality. Obviously, I don't think I'm the only one that uses it, but I love that functionality. So there's a couple things. I also really like this interpretation functionality. It's the first time I've gotten to actually use it as a presenter. And so really, really good. I also think the video quality is good as well. Now, here's the downside of it. As much as the video quality is good and the audio quality is pretty good, it's designed for talking. So for what we're doing right now, it's incredible, right? Like the audio quality sounds good, all that sort of stuff. The video though, it's downgraded just a little bit. It's only at 720p, which is, if you've ever heard of, for example, 1080p, or maybe you've heard of 4K and 4K TVs and Blu-rays and things like that. This is a step down from all those. So it looks good, but it's not like the highest quality. If I put this up, whoever in the audience said they're watching this on their TV, if they're watching this on a nice 4K or 1080p TV, it probably looks a little fuzzy. It doesn't look quite right. So if you're playing any really high-end video content, not the best. Slide presentations, totally good. Video content, not so much. But also as well, the thing I don't like about Zoom is that it chops off the high end of the voice and the low end of the voice. What I mean by that is that when we were playing music at the beginning, you might have barely noticed it. It sounds a little bit like you're listening to it on like some 1990s iPod headphones. It doesn't have any bass and it kind of chopped off a little bit on top. So it sounds very flat sounding. So if, for example, let's say your event, you have this epic video intro and it's going to have like, you want everybody's like ears to rumble in their headphones and everything like that as well. You're not going to get that experience on Zoom. In fact, also when you're sharing video content in Zoom, Zoom is prioritizing having a good connection over super duper smooth video. So if you ever share a screen, you see it a little bit actually when you're sharing the presentation for the walk-in, is that every couple frames, they drop it. So you get this kind of stuttery looking video. So not everything looks beautiful and smooth. Webcams look pretty good, but they don't do it on the screen share. And they do that to save bandwidth, which is great. If your audience has bad internet connections, Zoom's awesome. But if you're trying to create a more high fidelity experience, not so much. The other thing I don't like about it as well is that if you are ever going to do multiple sessions, we have the ability to do breakout rooms within Zoom meetings. But for example, if we want to go to mini rooms and side discussions right now, there's no way to do it within the webinar functionality. It might be coming, but I doubt it's coming in the next 6 to 12 months for Zoom. So.
Which are the top ones? So on your understand, so which ones would you say, take a look on those ones? Those ones are something are calling my attention right now.
Yeah. So I want to be super evergreen when I say this, because I think that in 2 months, my answers are going to change.
Yeah, for sure.
My answer changed in the last month already too. Just even as things are coming out.
It's a picture of today. So you understand that.
Well, I'll give you a one-upmanship. I will help you understand a piece of thought process that will help you beyond today. Forever. You will always know what the best platforms are.
That's great.
First things first, when it comes to your platform, look at who was already creating event technology before this all happened. That's the first start. Because a lot of these platforms right now, they were all focused on in-person experiences, but they are realizing that virtual and hybrid is a future. They're all scrambling like crazy to throw money at virtual. And they have pretty much most of the functionality built in. They just need to set it, instead of clicking the general session, it shows you a map where to go to the general session. Instead, it takes you to a live stream page, right? So that's one of the first things. Look at the existing technologies that already exist. There's some really incredible stuff. The second thing that you want to look at is look at their website. If their website isn't well designed, it doesn't get you so excited about this platform that you want to, use it every day and make it your homepage, then don't consider, you might not want to consider using it. I'm not saying don't consider it, but a lot of times for me, when I'm evaluating software, period, I look at the company's website. And if their company website sucks, soup to nuts, that like absolute like deal breaker will be, I'll log in the software and be like, wow, yeah, the software is even worse than their website. Because think about it. If they can't take the time to have a beautiful website of their own, how can they even have the platform and the tool to have a beautiful website? And then the last thing I'll say as well is when it comes to looking at your platforms, look at what integrates with existing tools as well. Don't get locked into an ecosystem. Don't get locked into an all-in-one platform, because what happens is if you ever find out that there's this cool, exciting other app. So for example, let's say you choose an all-in-one platform. We used Braindates earlier, but you love Braindates and you went on it, you thought it was incredible. Well, because they already have their own networking tool, they're not going to want to integrate with Braindates. Now that exciting tool that you think was going to really change your networking, you can't use it because you're locked into an all-in-one platform.
Yeah.
So something to just kind of keep in mind.
Okay, that's great.
But Will, before you look for some specific suppliers that you're saying, if you, what is the step before that? I mean, how do you decide which platform do you really need? I mean, there's a step before, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Which
so
kind? She means which kind of platforms do you need for a specific event?
Yeah,
do you need a streamer? Do you need a video editing, a video cutting platform? So what do you need?
Yeah, so that's where we fall into kind of the category of features, right? Features and benefits kind of area. So
Yes.
I think after you understand your strategy and what your attendees want and their ultimate outcome that they're looking to get out of this event, well, are they looking to learn? Are they looking to network? Whatever it may be, right? Then you start to design your content and figure that out. Once you have that picture put together, most of the time, if you hand that and say, this is my attendees, this is what they're looking to get out of it, this is the kind of content that I existingly have and I want to make sure that we have, you hand that to a platform, they should be able to tell you how the platform is going to help you accomplish that goal. But also as well, you probably will figure this out as you start to talk to more and more platforms. So the features that you kind of want to look at is, first thing you need to look at is your registration element, which is where are people going to sign up? Where do people pay? Where do they RSVP? Where and kind of part of that as well as the whole website, like the landing page that they come into, what does that all look into? That's one of the most important features. Almost every event's going to have that, unless you're just like sharing a Zoom link and saying, anyone join, right? But we usually aren't. We're usually like, we love registration. So start with registration. A lot of tools have registration. However, if you have a very robust ability that you need to be able to track people and, categorize them properly, ship off stuff to them, you might be looking for a little bit more of a robust registration tool. The next kind of major feature that I always recommend looking at and discussing and thinking about before you start looking at platforms is, what is the attendee profile look like? So because before, when we attended events, our profile was our face, what we wore, and our badge. That on virtual events and digital events now is the social profile, or the profile, right? It's kind of like your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook or Twitter. It's the thing that says like, this is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I'm interested in, whatever it may be. It might also think about features subset of that. Like maybe it shows what sessions you're attending. Maybe it shows when you're available to meet, that sort of thing as well. But you want to make sure it has a robust attendee profile feature. Otherwise, to like, for example, and this is why Zoom's not a good option for a lot of virtual events, is right now I only see like Eduardo and Pedro in there, and I have their first and last names. I'd have to highlight their name, copy it, paste it in LinkedIn, learn a little bit about them, come back and be like, Pedro, let's meet. Well, what if I could just click on Pedro's name and see everything that Pedro's all about, and see, what company he works for, what sessions he attended, all those things like that as well. So that's why it's important. It's the kind of the stuff that we saw in person now brought virtually as well, and if not more. Next thing, and these kind of all more fold into the general session experience, but Q&A, polling, and chat. A lot of this is obvious. We're all using it right now, but you want to make sure there's a really, really good functionality. I talked a little bit about the up-down feature of Q&A. I love that. I think that's really important. Next is think about how are your attendees, is it one-on-one networking important to them? It also is okay to say networking is not important for this event. Not every event needs it. For example, like right now I'm trying to create some networking experience by using the Google Doc and using the chat a little bit. But to be honest, it's more about the education and what I'm teaching than it is about people getting to talk to each other as well. That might change in a couple months because people are going to get sick of just listening to people. But think if networking is important to you, you need to make sure that's a feature. And then again, when you're looking at the platform and the vendor site, it will list all these features out. It should be really clear that they have this. Next thing as well, collaborative systems like whiteboarding as well. One of my favorite tools ever, and this isn't a virtual event platform, but it's just a cool tool that you can embed or integrate, is a cool tool called man, that's a tongue twister. Cool tool called Mural. So I think it's mural.co. I'll post it in the chat. It's a really cool site that allows you to like post Post-it notes and whiteboard and draw on it together. And you can basically have, it shows, it's super cool. Go check it out. And then the last feature that we get asked about the most is expo halls and advertiser opportunities, sponsorship opportunities, things like that. A lot of you, I'm sure, are very dependent on the sponsorship dollars that come in, the exhibitor money coming in. Yeah. No doubt, we have to figure out ways to activate these people. However, the way to not do this is to consider it the way you did an expo hall in the past. Again, go back to the why. Why does the exhibit hall exist? Well, first of all, I need money as an event creator, right? So that's obvious. Put that one out. But why do attendees go to an expo hall? Why do exhibitors want an expo hall? So let's say the attendees want to meet and see the newest, coolest technologies that are coming out there, right? Like maybe like a consumer electronics show kind of style event. They just want to walk around and see what's cool and unique, right? For exhibitors, it could be that for that exact show, it could be that they want to get feedback from customers about their products. Maybe they're looking to place orders. Figure out what the why is for your exhibitors and your attendees around an exhibit hall before you choose to do the tool that executes that as well. Far too much are people wanting to have, like, you guys remember the game The Sims, where you basically could like have your person walk around a 3-dimensional space and everything like that. Avoid that experience. No one wants to have a 3D representation of an expo hall and to click around and, click and see the 3D representation of an expo hall. No one enjoys that. Just don't do that. Never. Dear God, please don't do that. However, think about maybe ways that you can activate your exhibitors throughout the entire event. Maybe things like running ads before the live stream. Maybe running ads before all the pre-recorded content. Maybe it's having exhibitors that have really good content share that content and be the keynote speaking person or whatever it may be. So many different options out there, but think more creatively. And when it comes to expo halls, think like a digital marketer, a digital marketing person, rather than thinking like an expo hall planner or like an event planner. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Great. There's a question here that says a situation that's very common. How can you deal with the different levels of quality and connection from people? Because some has very good speech of connection, and another one don't. How can you handle those situations?
That's a great question to ask your platform. I will say, take that question, ask your platform that question, because the easy answer, they come back to you and say, look, we have the ability for people to scale up and scale down their quality of their experience based on their internet connection, and should do it automatically. Just like when you watch a YouTube video, it drops to like 480p or whatever quality. You have that the little gear icon that essentially allows you to choose a different quality. Like, everyone's heard about how YouTube automatically degraded everyone to 720p rather than the nice like 1080 or 4K footage. Consider doing that and having your system automatically decide. But also, not only just automatically decide, give them the option to downgrade further, because we've all been there before where it chooses the setting and then all of a sudden it's like buffering, it's going slow. Oh, this is awkward. And we're like, I wish I could just manually make it go less quality. And that might be an option that if you're having people in really, really rural areas, you might need to give them an audio only option. Obviously, we know that's going to be a poor experience, but I would rather have someone be able to listen in almost like a podcast and enjoy the chat than to not be able to attend the event at all. But your system should automatically decide the quality of it. And all modern day video streaming and things like that are totally capable of doing that.
A question for you, Will, is I'm going to try to catch you this time. So let's say endless events are going to make an event of 1,000 people in 1 month. Which tools would you use?
Oh man! All right. So if you have 1,000 people and it's in a month, first thing I would look for is deployability. I would want the planner to be able to get into the system. So I'm just going to give you an idea of how my brain works. I would want the ability for the planner to be able to edit content, move content around very, very quickly, right? I don't want to be trapped into working with a salesperson and have to give like an Excel file to load everything in and then wait for their response and then check it and, oh, there's a typo. I want to have self-serve technology. And that's something you're probably looking at is more self-serve related options, which dramatically changes what systems that you're going to use as well. Next thing I would think about as well is what is your budget for this 1,000-person event? Because if you're having a very high-end 1,000-person event with like just the most insanely awesome experience, like you're shipping people gold bars because it's such a high-end experience. I might choose a different platform and different system than another one.
It's hard to catch you. It's really hard.
Yeah, I know. It's really hard. I mean, so the thing, just so everyone knows too, is that I get paid to tell people what platforms to use and set them up for people. So that's also one reason I don't get locked into one single platform is that like my mentality is that like at this point, like we should like, honestly, when this first happened, I was telling people like, look, in the meantime, while we're still trying to figure out what the best platforms are still, Zoom is great. And for some people, Zoom is great. I can't tell someone like, Zoom is absolutely the worst, but instead it's about picking the right, the right strategy. And then you might fit into Zoom. Like for someone out here planning a webinar for 100 people, Zoom is great. Just do Zoom. It's cheap, easy to use, right? Everyone understands how to use it now too. Yeah. But for someone else, it might not be. One more thing I just want to kind of think about when it comes to when you're planning what platform to utilize as well is think about the integrations of it as well. Yeah. I am more of a fan of one tool that integrates with a lot of things than, again, those all-in-one platforms on there too. And right now I can tell you, and this is again one reason why I don't tell too many people like the platforms is like, for example, a lot of clients are asking for what's called single sign-on ability. The idea that you register with one login and you have another login, and you don't have another login. You can click one button and you get into the platform. Everything you need is just automatically logging into each other and things like that. I can tell you right now, we've done our research. We've looked at over 300 different platforms. In the last couple
of years. It's impossible, right? To have a single sign-on to everything.
Yeah, it doesn't exist quite yet for, like, for example, people want Cvent to connect with their virtual event platform. Like, no one's quite doing it quite yet. Everyone's requiring, like, oh, you get an email with your separate login. It's like, it's a nightmare. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're looking at virtual event platforms, I'll give you a tip. If you Google top virtual event platforms, I'm sure a list will pop up for you. So take a look at that. I can't promise that we will be ranking #1 for that one, but it's something to just kind of keep in mind as well. So I will answer this question because I am totally, everyone's like, you're diverting the question so much. I will answer this question from Adriana, who asked, what do you think about Crowdcast? Crowdcast is great, but it's almost just live streaming primarily. One thing I'm not the biggest fan of it is that it has zero integrations with anything that allows like one-on-one networking, things like that as well. So if you're looking to expand your event beyond just, hey, I'm attending some webinars and jumping from session to session, Crowdcast is not good. Also, if I remember correctly, Crowdcast, I think, technically runs everything on their platform as well. So I think it publicizes your events when you publish them. I don't know if they can be private or not, but something to just kind of keep in mind as well. Crowdcast isn't horrible, though. But for some people, it might be great. For some people, it might be the worst option as well. So. Yeah.
So I'm going to consume some Q&A questions here. So Monica Araújo is asking, could you give some kind of business model for virtual event? For example, how much to charge a week packages if you divide in package? So what have you seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give you guys an article we just published in the last week called How to Price Your Events and, how do you actually create profit from your events as well. And I'll give you guys a couple ideas. So first thing that I recommend is that when it comes to pricing your event, don't make the tempting decision to make it way cheaper than your in-person event. Right now, I think people are like, yeah, like the virtual experience is way worse than what my in-person experience is. So I'm, instead of charging $1,000 for my conference, I'm going to charge $30. It's a lot harder to get from $30 back to $1,000 than it is to get maybe give discounts or something like that. Or, but, probably not even give discounts, but it's harder to get back up to $1,000 than it is for you to discount down to $700 and then get back up to $1,000. So something you kind of keep in mind. Think long term when it comes to your pricing. Second thing, charge. Whatever you do, charge for your events. You have value. We've charged for our events in the past. Charge and make the value there. I think I've heard a lot of virtual event planners and promoters say, oh, you know, it's a bad time for people. We want to make it free, whatever it may be. People are paying for virtual events. Charge for the event. Unless it's just purely lead generation and you're just trying to get as many contacts in as possible, then your monetization scheme's a little bit different and you probably know what you're doing, right? The second idea as well is consider maybe doing a tiered pricing. I saw this. We have a Slack group, and I'll post a link to it in the chat. So if you'd like to join, we literally created a whole entire Slack full of event professionals. But someone posted in one of the channels of a really cool event that was doing a multi-tiered pricing, just like we would do at our other events, right? You have like a community pass, a VIP pass, that sort of thing. What they did is they said, if you want to attend the sessions and watch the sessions, it's free. Come and enjoy the content, right? Because the cost per attendee was so low for them. But what they realized is that people crave networking and they crave the on-demand experience. What were the features that your attendees, again, the strategy, what did they really crave? And they charged like $400 for that. So there was a huge price gap, but what it did is that it allowed people who just wanted the content to get it for free, right? To be honest, they're probably not gonna pay $400 for content, maybe. Again, they understand their audience better than I do, but they charged for the extra features that they thought were most important to their attendees. So then that way they got it better. And then they did like even more features was like $1,000, whatever it may be. So they created this tiered pricing structure. So allowed different people to get in at different levels. Again, think about the strategy of what your attendees want and your personas. And, you know, for example, like if your personas are all event professionals, most event professionals don't have money right now, right? Because we're all trying to figure out how to get cash in the door. So if that's the case, maybe that's why you charge free for your event. However, like if your event is for bankers and, you know, or, you know, let's be honest too, like maybe healthcare as well, like there's money still flowing in that sector and there's still jobs and things like that going, you know, don't hesitate to charge for those because you have value. So.
Great, that's great. So I'm going to launch some pool right now. Ooh. So it's just one question as far as I see. So I just launched it. The question is easy. So you can see also, Will. So to which phase of the digital event, when you generate it, do you believe you need to learn more? So come on, let's answer. So the first one is to sell the digital event. So in trying to explain what is to sell is to sell to the customer, to the owner of the event, or to sell to the department. If you are a corporate event manager, to sell to the department that is requesting you the event. How do you sell the digital event instead of the presential one? Okay, this is the first one. So it needs an explanation. It's not to sell the event to the attendees, right? It's to sell internally or to sell to the owner of the event. And the second one is design the experience. The third one is to contract the source, and the last one is all the previous answers.
All the above. I have a guess. It's going to be all the above.
And also there's the execution of the digital event. So ending the pool right now with 69% of answers and sharing the results.
Nice.
All the answers.
You need to learn a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. What's interesting for me is just so everyone knows, like, I think there's also a little bit of strategy behind this as well. This is such a great opportunity for Rob and Vanessa because they're polling you guys saying like, what do you want to learn more about? And I bet you right now, they're going to go back and say, okay, this experience design is the second highest. Yeah. Let's focus our content for our next one on experience design. So that's how you can use audience engagement to be constantly reiterating what you're designing and get that feedback and constantly build our events. They're like smiling all smug because I just revealed how they're doing everything. But that's just something to think about when it comes to your event as well. You can do this in real time too. Imagine this session. There was another session right after this. Let's say, for example, this answer, they go to the speaker in the next session and say, hey, last poll, they say they want to learn more about experience design. What can you talk about experience design? And shift the talk to immediately fulfill what you guys are trying to do. But that's just an idea.
Yeah, so we will also read minds. That's okay.
Will, there's a question that I think is gonna catch you too. They're asking about the exhibitions, because when you work in exhibitions, especially the business one, you need the presential. I mean, you need people to attend the exhibition. How can you see the virtual events related to exhibitions? Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, there's going to be some industries that this is going to be the specific event types that virtual is going to be harder. I'm not going to lie, right? Like for example, nonprofit, not-for-profit galas where we paid money to go to a dinner and dance and drink alcohol and then just give our money for objects that we didn't really need and we didn't think we were going to buy that day. That model is really hard to do virtual, right? Like if I really want to auction and buy things, I'm going to grab a beer out of the fridge and I'm going to go in from my computer and let's open up eBay and play some music and I'll dance in my apartment, right? Like what, it's going to be hard to recreate that experience virtually. Exhibits are going to have a much harder time too. What I think that you're going to have to think about if you're an exhibit is think about how can I help. The true nature of the exhibit is to help those exhibitors market, right? To create a marketing opportunity for them. So if you are a primarily exhibit focused company, it's time to double down and start learning digital marketing and understanding how can you market to attendees digitally. And then things will start to unveil itself. It'll be like the fog will clear and you will start to see everything and ideas will come left and right. So for example, me as a digital marketer, I know that one of the great ways that I love to educate and draw audiences in is through podcasts, right? We have 3 different podcasts that we have, and I'll make sure to throw them in the links down below and in the Google Doc. But imagine with your exhibit event, what if instead you did a podcast that every day an episode came out that was 5 minutes long of the best tip coming from every single exhibitor at your event? I'm sure that if your audience that attended that exhibition would totally want to tune in that podcast to get one new tip of information every single day from the people they were going to have to talk to anyways. And I bet you that your exhibitors for a very great podcast that has great content, great production value would probably pay just as much as they were paying you as an exhibitor to have that experience. Let's say someone was a bigger presenter, they had a bigger booth or whatever it is. Maybe you give them a couple of episodes. Maybe you give them a longer episode. But that's how you kind of start to think about a digital marketer and how can I help my attendees market it? And I can sell those digital marketing assets and then it will start unveiling. That's just an idea I came up off of the top of my head. But, that's a, great example. So Marianne said like food shows on podcast. Like, I think that, like for example, if your event was primarily a food-based event where people went and sampled different restaurants and things like that, what if instead you create a video show where maybe you could go in quarantine 6 feet away from each other, record from the kitchen and let the head chef talk about one of their favorite dishes and kind of advertise how they do it. We have this already. These are food TV shows, right? There's a whole TV channel called the Food Network that is based on this. Same kind of concept as well.
Yeah.
You in the previous interview, Will, you said about the TV language for transmission, for streaming the virtual events. And there is also some relative things like if you want to have movement, you have to have 2 or 3 cameras and so forth. I think you have some tips for the audience about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually ironic because we're going to be recording an episode of one of our podcasts called the Event Tech Podcast. We are recording an episode on how to treat your live stream like a broadcast right after this. So I'll include the link to subscribe to that so you can learn in detail. But yes, treat your live stream experience like a TV broadcast. I'm getting pretty scot-free off here, having a pretty simple experience of 1 camera and everything like that. But the thing that I'm doing to make it more of a broadcast element is I have a really nice microphone. So I sound really good to listen to, right? Maybe you don't like what words I'm saying, but at least it's pleasing to the ears. It doesn't sound scratchy, right?
We like your words. We like your words.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But think about, for example, what does a TV station look like? They always have multiple cameras. They have teleprompters, right? Think about all those elements of technology that they use to put on the TV broadcast. Should be the same thing you're thinking about when it comes to your virtual event as well. If you like watching TV shows and you think that I talk very, very fast and you don't mind it too much at all, there's a great TV show called The Newsroom on HBO that is fantastic. It's about the behind the scenes of a fictional TV station, but you kind of get to see what it's kind of like. Obviously, there's a little bit of drama with it and things like that, but I think it's exciting to watch like how they call the cues and how do they interact with each other? How do they get so much stuff done to produce this nightly TV show? Same kind of concept as well.
Perfect.
So I have
there's
some.
one question.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I have some others in the Q&A.
Yes, I have one here that's is quite interesting. They ask about the event app. Do you think that it helps in engagement, and how?
Yeah, I mean, your event app these days is your virtual event platform. There is ways that if you wanted to kind of make it a little complicating for your attendees, in theory, you could have an event app on their phone and the virtual event platform is different. But I think that's going to confuse attendees. But what a lot of these virtual event platforms, and this might be something you evaluate, if the mobile experience and you want people to, you know, ask questions on their phone, but then being able to watch sessions on their computer, you might need to make sure that your virtual event platform has a mobile option that allows them to engage on both. It's this concept they call second screen technology. The idea that you have one main screen and a secondary screen. But what I would recommend is have your virtual event platform and also the mobile app be the same thing. Allow the attendee to look through the schedule on their phone while they have the video full screened up. Yeah. Things like that, I think, make it really, really easy.
And TV shows are doing a lot of that as well. So I've got another question here in the Q&A session. So from Fernanda Cruz is, Will, do you think in the future the events will be 100% virtual? So she put back to you the question.
She flipped the question back to me. So great question. If you think about it, it's not the future. It's happening right now. I haven't been to an in-person event in over a month and a half. And this is coming from someone who used to go to events like every single day, right? So right now it's 100%, right? And I think that's something to think about as well, is think about, that's one reason why I don't preach too many specific platforms, is that before, virtual events was 1%, 2% of the market. Now it's 100% of the market. For the foreseeable future, we're obviously trying to get back to going in person, but in the foreseeable future, it is 100% virtual. When we get back to having the ability to see each other in person, whenever that is, we will start to slowly move into hybrid, because what's going to happen is you're still going to have a majority of attendees who are not going to feel comfortable, who are not going to feel like, I'm going to risk it. I'm totally okay to shaking this person's hand, right? People are going to want to be separate from each other. So probably the next step is that we'll have a hub and spoke model, which is the idea that you have like maybe a very, very small event or a studio that then broadcasts out to all these different spokes and smaller like satellite events that have maybe 2 people at it, maybe 5 people at it. And they basically have little mini events that connect into this larger event. And then eventually we'll get back to having 1,000 people in a room, but there'll still be 1,000 people online. So I think virtual will always be a part of events, at least the smart events, now moving forward. But I think that right now you're going to have a lot more people who are going to say, oh, I was going to 5 conferences a year in person. You know what? I really only liked one of them. I'll go to the other 4 virtually. And that's going to be the new experience that people have, is only maybe attending one event in person a year or something like that.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned about smart events, and I am really crazy about this concept. I love it. Yeah. And I like the events that respect the intelligence of people, right? When you see an event like we are doing today is an event that we deliver content, and our sponsors are going to speak after we deliver the pizza, right? So first deliver the pizza, after that we talk about the company, right? And this is the way that we respect the intelligence of people. So this is part of the concept of a smart event. So can you explain us a little bit more about smart events?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to, how can you respect the intelligence of your attendees is also potentially offering them, instead of, for example, I think you guys did a great job at this, is having the housekeeping notes on a slide and then just jumping into the content right away. Because I think people very much lose attention very, very quickly. So if you don't just dive into the content right away, people are gonna be like, I'll just, I'll let them check my email real quick. And then 30 minutes later, oh my gosh, where did the session go? So I think that the more you can expect that your attendees, if you tell them how to do something, they'll figure it out and they'll utilize it as well. Also, I think giving freedom to your attendees is also important as well. So for example, in this case, you guys are utilizing the chat very, very well to communicate and talk to each other. I put the Google Doc in there as well. So then that way you guys can take notes in there. Some people just are watching this and absorbing it. Some people are taking notes on a piece of paper, but giving people the freedom and the personalization to design their own experience also allows you to respect that everybody has their own way of doing things as well.
Yeah. Great, great.
Perfect.
Vanessa.
Perfect. There is people more than once ask you to repeat the name of the TV show in HBO that you said.
The Newsroom. And I'll post it on.
Yes, please write down Newsroom.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
Adriana beat me to it. She's so fast.
Yes. Yes, Adriana, just write it down. The Newsroom.
So you have 5 minutes now. So you have more 2 questions. After that, we have the word from Daniela Fonseca, which is one of our sponsors. And more 2 questions. Vanessa, do you have anyone?
Well, I would like to ask the people to answer which
platforms are they using?
Yes.
That's a good question. So
there you go. I won't answer, but someone else will, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They still answer you how to choose the best one and how to create experience in the platforms. I think it's so many aspects that should be thinking when after or before you choose the experience. And that's what I think it makes the most difficult for them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's definitely thinking about the experience is the hardest challenge. Especially, I think one reason why this question is so hard and to personally answer for other people than it is obviously for me is that most people don't know what's out there. So the more that you can educate yourself on what's possible is the better. But the other thing as well is when consider also bringing in a partner who does know what's going on, but let your creativity fly. Just because you don't know what's possible doesn't mean that you can't just say, hey, is this possible? I'd love this kind of experience. I'd love, like, let's say you want that 3D experience of walking down the exhibit hall. But let's say, like, I'd love to make it so when my attendees literally move their feet, they walk in a 3-dimensional space. Well, most people might say, that's not possible. There's no way that's possible. I'll tell you right now, that's totally possible. The way you do it is if you've ever seen the movie Ready Player One, the pad that he walks on, the treadmill, that's a real product that actually exists. And putting in virtual reality, that's existed now for over a year and a half. And so if you really want your attendees to experience that, it's possible. It might be cost prohibitive and very expensive, but it's possible. So don't be afraid to let yourself get creative and say, well, this is the kind of experience I think would make my attendees just absolutely love my event. And then the people who understand the technology shouldn't be saying, no, that's 100% not possible. They should be saying things like, no, that's expensive. No, that doesn't integrate with what you're trying to do. Yes, it exists, but it sucks. Right? So that they shouldn't be saying just no. And I'm going to go back and make sure that my operations team and sales team aren't saying this, but make sure that everything is possible. If you have unlimited money, if you're okay being a beta tester, like anything's possible. Just don't be afraid to experiment and let your mind go wild.
Okay, my last question. So Vanessa, you did yours. So 2 questions. You did yours. Your last. My last.
Yes.
Now.
Okay.
I'm joking. You can answer. You can ask after me. About security, cybersecurity, and things like that. How has been the discussion in the United States about that? And what your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's not going good. I will tell you that a lot of these platforms are not very secure as well. I definitely think this is the time that you're going to add someone to your team and who's going to be a cybersecurity expert. I know enough about cybersecurity to be dangerous and to realize when there's some major holes. However, I don't know how to sniff a network and make sure everything's going okay and there's intrusions and things like that as well. Make sure that you have a cybersecurity expert, I think is very, very important. But I think that my excitement around this is that because virtual events are getting so much attention, I think now the event technology industry is going to take so many steps forward when it comes to cybersecurity. And I'll share a link in the Google Doc and in the chat for a webinar that we did about cybersecurity and things to kind of look for when it comes to cybersecurity. But feel free to take a look at that. We kind of talk a little bit about some basics inside of that webinar, and it'll give you a good idea as far as what you should be looking at. But yeah, we're in a pretty bad place. So I think we're going to get there, but things definitely can get better.
So I'm excited with your answer. Now I'm happy. So Vanessa, your last question, and we deliver the mic to Daniela, and our last words after that.
Awesome.
When think about events, you think to deliver value. And there, I mean, Marcele Rocha is asking about what is the essential KPIs that should consider when you're thinking about a virtual event or hybrid event?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think right now with virtual events, analytics are at our fingertips. Before, if we wanted to track what people went into what sessions, we had to put like devices on them and, Bluetooth or RFIDs. Now we can track everything everyone's doing online, right? And this stuff has existed again for years in the marketing space, and now it's obviously in the virtual space. But I believe fully in the idea of being able to track your attendees so you can look at individual people and what they did throughout the site. So something just kind of keep in mind as you're doing this. But KPIs are so incredibly important, right? So first one I think that everyone needs to be measuring is called Net Promoter Score, or NPS. It's the worldwide standard for measuring happiness amongst people. This also allows you to identify who the people are that like you the most, and then you can market to them to help them become promoters and help sell even more tickets for you. Super duper cool. So NPS, first one. Perfect. Second thing that I think you need to look at is dwell time on specific things that you find important. I can't tell you what those important things are, but for example, did people watch the entire general session, or did they click out after a couple seconds? Things like that as well. And you can look at those as average and things like that. And again, a lot of this has existed on the internet. Like if you think about like Google Analytics stats are probably really good to learn what are the most important ones. You can probably Google like best website and KPIs, and you'll probably get some ideas on this as well. The next thing that I think I look at as well is how many people connected with each other as well. So a lot of these one-on-one networking systems have the ability to know that, for example, if I signed up for networking, that I connected with this person, I met this person. And if you can see the number of connections, it also allows you, if networking is important to you, again, if networking is not important to you, this doesn't matter. But if networking is important to you, okay, I hit my goal of trying to do this. And I think at some point too, metrics are always going to be overwhelming. And the thing I always tell my team when they're setting their KPIs, it's better to have a KPI to start with than none. So just pick something, start measuring it and compare it over and start collecting the data. And you'll probably realize and be like, this metric isn't important because one year the metric was really, really good. That was our lowest ticket sales we ever had. The next year it was really, really bad. And we had our highest ticket sales we've ever had. What gives? And you might be able to say, okay, that KPI doesn't matter anymore, but start with something. But one I always recommend is NPS, and then, start to look at like interactivity on the site. And I think that's a good place to start.
So I'm going to start to the last words from our side. So maybe it's better you start, Vanessa. Otherwise I can say everything. Go ahead, Vanessa, your last words. I'm going to Will mostly because you're going to talk to people yet in Portuguese, but to Will.
Will, I can't thank you enough for being with us together. I knew that everybody's gonna love it, and each time I see you, I love you more. I told you that before. So, well, thank you. I think the request will be that to listen to you more in a future time. I hope that can be true. I mean, that you can come back and talk to us again.
Absolutely. Always happy to. And my hope is in the hopefully not too distant future, I'll get to meet you all in person in Sao Paulo or wherever.
That will be great. I'll do my best to make that come true. You can believe that. You can count on that.
So Will, thank you for your generosity. So you can stay here with us if you can. But you are a really generous person and an open-minded person with full of knowledge. And Brazilian event people are really saying thank you very much for you, because you brought lots of knowledge to us in a really nice conversation and a really nice way to explain things and to bring the real important aspects of choosing the suppliers and to choose the platforms and everything else. So thank you very much. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.